issues. It's looking like the tubes are connecting. Hopefully it goes over here to this screen and connects us to the YouTubes, because it goes from one to the other to the other. It's like following the bouncing ball. We always got to make sure the streams are working, but it looks like they're alive and well, which is tremendous news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group, located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, my friends, we are talking about weapons. We've got some interesting things brewing all around the world, and one of them is this app called TikTok. In fact, many of you may be on it. I was on it at one point in time, decided that I didn't want the CCP leering into my entire life, and so decided to get rid of it. But a lot of people in the federal government are still having a difficult time understanding why this is such a problematic app. But we see a little bit of activity in the Senate. You take a look here. We've got Josh Hawley. He drafted up a bill for us called S 1143. That got passed in the United States Senate. Wow, pretty big deal. So that means it goes over to the House. I mean, you can't really get anything done in the Senate, especially a bunch of stuff with Republicans and Democrats coming together. So what is the problem? What's the big problem? Well, we know that some people are calling this app a big national security concern. We've got a clip from Christopher Wray. He says, yeah, I mean, they look, not only are they gobbling up data, but they can also influence the entire country, right? Because if you got 100 million teenagers on there, eventually they're not going to be teenagers anymore. They're going to be voters. And if you get to program them for the next 10 years, well, that might serve your interest. So we've got a clip. Somebody is calling it digital fentanyl, which I think is a good description on that. We've got one from Marco Rubio. He's saying that China tried to interfere with elections, and he's making some pretty interesting claims about the midterms. We've got the Democrats responding. You can see the White House doesn't really want to talk about this stuff. They kind of are plugged in big time with, or they were, with the CCP. We saw that Hunter Biden, when we had that great conversation with Garrett Ziegler, if you missed that interview, it's a must watch. But he said that, the Hunter Biden and the family were interfacing with the Chinese. And so they're very, very reluctant to comment on any of this stuff. White House says, go over and talk to Congress. Yeah, I know I misspelled fentanyl. I know I saw that. I caught that too. All right. Let's fix it. Let's just go fix it. I saw it too. I was a little irritated with myself. All right. I saw that. Somebody caught it in the chat. You're right. Busted. You got to call it out. Hey, I call it out on the, I call it out on the other, when we go through. So you got to call it out. I get it. Did I hope I didn't spell it twice. All right. So we have State Department Ned, right? It's Ned, who really is very excellent in not giving us any answers. And he spoke for about 2 minutes, right? We're interfacing with the Chinese, and he doesn't want to talk too much about it. Also, Pelosi is asked about this because if the Senate passed something, right, this is going over to the House like right now. So Pelosi, what are you going to do with this? Hopefully you can give us an answer. We'll see what she has to say for us. So that's all going to be the federal government and sort of how they're responding to this, national security application that has been installed. We're also then going to look at what the states are doing, because since the federal government is so inept and they have basically zero capacity to do much of anything anymore, the states are jumping in and they're actually doing things. There's an attorney general from the state of Indiana. His name is Todd Rokita, not Todd Rokita. Rokita. And that is the attorney general. And he's actually filing a lawsuit against TikTok, against ByteDance. And so we're going to go through that. It's a juicy one. It's actually a pretty great lawsuit. He details the differences between the American app and the Chinese app. And they're dramatic. So we'll go through that. It's pretty interesting. We're going to check in with South Dakota. Kristi Noem is banning TikTok across all the state governments. She issued an executive order that we'll read through, not a big long one, but she's also going one step further. She's saying no CCP Farms as well, right? In other words, we're not going to allow foreign purchases of land, of farmland. So get out it. And, some people are saying, oh my gosh, is that bigotry? Is that xenophobia? We'll see. There's an announcement. Some people say it makes a whole lot of sense. Why would you give control of your food supply to a foreign nation? All right. We're going to go over to Texas. Governor Abbott is in the house. Shout out to our Eddie Oliver, our resident Texan. He's probably going to scream at me today. But he's talking about a statewide ban on TikTok as well. So the states are jumping in. They're actually doing stuff on this, whereas everybody else is not. So all that is going to be great in the second segment as the states start to do some things. And then lastly, in our final segment, there was a new unclassified report that came out from the House Intelligence Committee, the Republicans, a minority staff led by a representative named Brad Wenstrup, released the unclassified summary of their report on COVID-19. And so you can see it right here, the report unclassified right there, second interim report, all coming out, and we will go through it in great detail. And so, as you can see, we have a lot to get to today. And if you want to be a part of the program, my friends, the best place to do that is over at our community, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We hang out after the show's over. We do after parties over there. You can see chat is lively and filled with some brilliant, very good-looking people. Zach Nichols is in the house. Texas Ditch Doctor is in the house. We've got C. Wolf, Resident Bedoin, JC the Music Man, and many others. And shout out to Bonnie and all the others who are in the chat. So come on over there. We also do some morning streams. We did a morning members-only stream today for YouTube members. If you want to join on YouTube, you get those streams too, so you can join on YouTube. But really, locals is where you want to be. So, all right. So with that out of the way, my friends, that long introduction, boy, oh boy, let's get right into the program, shall we? Because there is a lot to get to here today. TikTok. Chinese spyware. Some people say this is a national security risk. We've talked a lot about it here. A lot of other things are considered major national security risks, but access to the entire population's data being piped over to China evidently takes a lot to get Congress to act. That being said, there was some activity in the Senate. You see this gentleman here, Senator Josh Hawley. He drafted a bill called the No TikTok on Government Devices bill, which we are going to read through. It passed in the Senate. It's Senate Bill 1143. We've got reaction from Marco Rubio, reaction from the White House, the State Department, and of course, Nancy Pelosi, because if the Senate passed this bill, then it's got to go over right across the way there at Capitol Hill, land in the desk of the Senate, of the House of Representatives, and we'll see what they do because the Democrats are still in control. But first, what the heck is the problem with TikTok? Why is everybody so concerned about it? You know, it's just a bunch of people dancing around, hopping around like, weirdos, right? No, it's actually something that is a big problem. In fact, some people are calling this digital fentanyl that is taking over the brains and corrupting our children. And so let's listen to this clip. This is a montage of a number of people explaining why TikTok is so problematic.
We need to ban TikTok.
And all of the data, right? Being able to scan people's faces, pipe in their locations, grab their contact lists, shove all of that into the coffers of the Chinese Communist Party. We've already covered here, right? That is absolutely happening. Even the ByteDance CEO who interfaces with TikTok, right? It's the company that owns the TikTok app. Even they were saying very carefully with their words that there was mechanisms by which Beijing could get access to all of the data. So major access point, right? And if you may disagree that it's a problem at all, who cares? Whatever the Chinese are doing, it's up to the parents, or it's up to the kids, or it's up to our, whatever. Maybe it's nobody's fault. Maybe nobody's responsible for it. I happen to disagree with that, but it seems like this is kind of a cohesive issue. Like there should be little debate about some of these concerns. Even me, the skeptic of the FBI and Christopher Wray, have to listen to this and agree. Christopher Wray is asked questions about TikTok's influence, and obviously, he has no choice but to answer and be perfectly honest. The app could be a catastrophe for American national security.
Taking the first question, I would say we do have national security concerns, at least from the FBI's end, about TikTok. They include the possibility that the Chinese government could use it to control data collection on millions of users or control the recommendation algorithm, which could be used for influence operations if they so chose, or to control software on millions of devices.
Influence, like they could pipe in, extra concerns about abortion or something, to certain age groups in certain states, just kind of adjust the algorithm so that more people are concerned about evil Republicans, taking away their rights. All you got to do is just move that knob a little bit, and something like that might change the course of an election.
Which gives it opportunity to potentially technically compromise personal devices. So there's a number of concerns there. As to what is actually happening and actually being done, that's probably something that would be better addressed in a closed, classified setting, and I could see what information we might be able to share that way, but that's probably not much more than I could add to that, other than to say it is certainly something that's on our radar, and we share your concerns.
We share your concerns on our radar. Director of the FBI says, well, yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of ways they could absolutely wreck America, but one of them we can't really talk about unless it's behind closed doors. And so we'll see what we can do to accommodate if you take us behind the scenes. So those are the concerns. I think every which way you look, if you've ever even used the app, right, if you actually use TikTok, you can feel how addictive it is. You can sit there and get on there and recognize that 2 hours went by, 3 hours go by, right? It's many people at one point, they were saying this was crossing the watch time of YouTube. This is crossing the watch time of all TV, right? It's physically sort of funneling dopamine hits every video to your brain. And a lot of other companies are trying to replicate this, right? YouTube is trying to do the same thing. Facebook has been trying to do the same thing. They're all trying to get you, addicted to these platforms, so to speak. And I don't think that is not a concern, right? That's a concern. It's a sort of a global concern. Privacy, data, what these tech companies are doing with the data, who's in control of it, how are they manipulating it? We just saw what they did with Twitter. So it's not necessarily that this is only a CCP TikTok issue. I think it goes across the board. The problem with this one is who's at the top, right? At least we know Zuckerberg, and we've got some regulatory concern over him. Same with Twitter, same with all of the other sort of domestic United States big tech conglomerates. But there's none of that in China, and they have direct interests, that are opposed to the United States. So the fact that it's a concern, I think, has been well established across the aisle. Everybody sort of is recognizing this, and the Senate took action. So we finally see the government do something. It's not often that we see actual progress on anything here, but we'll see how far this goes because there's still a long way to go. But Hawley announced this today. He says, "Hello, America. Our bill, my bill to ban TikTok on government devices passes the Senate unanimously." Unanimously? You're telling me you got all of the entire government in the Senate, all of the senators to agree on this thing? Wow. Tonight, Josh Hawley bill to ban TikTok on government devices passed unanimously for the second time. Bill would follow up on steps already taken by the State Department, the Department of Homeland Security, the DOD, and the TSA to ban the app on all devices. And Hawley, right, it's funny, he actually posts his Twitter here. He actually posts his tweet. So the tweet is sort of a better press release than the press release. But he says TikTok is a Trojan horse for the CCP. It's a major security risk until it's forced to sever ties with China completely. No place on government devices. And now it's time for Biden to do the same. He says states across the country are banning TikTok. Biden should do it as well. Hawley originally introduced the bill. It passed unanimously back in August. We had other senators who joined in. And so the full text of the bill is available, which we will read now. This is the Ban TikTok on Government Applications on Government Phones Act. You see, this says to prohibit certain individuals from downloading or using TikTok on any device issued by the United States or a government corporation. So be it enacted in the House that we're going to call this thing the No TikTok on Government Devices app. In this definition, under Section 2. This is prohibition of the use. The term is called covered application, right? So they're going to define what is actually prohibited. It means a social networking service, TikTok, or any successor application or service developed or created by ByteDance, right? So if they change the name or if they manipulate it or whatever, it'll still be prohibited. The term executive agency, same meaning under U.S. code. The term information technology, same meaning under U.S. code. Now the prohibition. Here's, if this passes, right, this has to go over to the House of Representatives and then be signed into law by Joe Biden, who we don't know if he is compromised or not. But they talk about the prohibition. So if this does pass, this will be the law. Not later than 60 days after the date of the enactment of this act, the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, so the OMB, in consultation with the Administrator of General Services, of Cybersecurity and Security Agency, the Director of National Intelligence, the Secretary of Defense, and others, shall develop standards and guidelines for executive agencies requiring the removal of covered application from information technology. All right, so they defined all those terms. Information technology, we just carry that definition all the way down, just put it right down there, right? So we define it right there. So it's basically the entire stack, like everything, right? Get that app out of everything. It's not allowed to touch anything. And seems pretty comprehensive. So in other words, 60 days, you'll have the guidelines. So develop the standards. So, in other words, this has to go over to like the United States Mint. Okay. There's like the Mint that mints the money. Do your employees have TikTok on their phone? Okay. Well, make sure that they know they got to get it off there. Well, what's the rule? Well, they have to go and tell you, you have to tell them, get the app off your phone and have them sign this confirmation that they remove the app from the phone, and you'll check the phone. And if they don't do it, these are the consequences. If they don't remove the app from the phone, termination in 30 days or whatever it is, right? So what are the standards for getting it gone? We also have the national security and the research exceptions. They say, well, all right, we'll let you have TikTok on your phone if you're doing it for law enforcement activities, like if you're trying to set up honeypots on there, or, create fictional white supremacist governor kidnapping plots. If you need the police or the FBI to be on there, they'll definitely do that. National security interests, activities, and security researchers, right? So they can all get on there and do whatever they want. For any unauthorized use of covered application, they need to develop risk mitigation actions for the use. Passed on the Senate December 14th, 2022. Secretary, you can see that's the short title on the bill. And so that is now heading over to the House of Representatives. And so we'll see what the House of Representatives does with this shortly. But many people are celebrating this. They're very excited about it. One senator is named Marco Rubio, and he has had a lot of concerns with China for quite some time, and TikTok in particular. And Rubio says that China has been interfering and meddling in American affairs.
Well, what we ban is their ability to make money in the country, and the reason is because it's basically a wholly owned subsidiary of the Communist Party of China. One thing, it's not about the content, ultimately. I mean, we have free speech in this country. It's about how the data that's on it is being used. So that's number one. Some people would say to me, well, what do we care if the Chinese government has access to the data on the phone of a 16-year-old teenager somewhere in America? It's not about the 16-year-old teenager. It's about millions of 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 30-year-olds.
And what they watch.
Dumping all kinds of data that the government of China gets access to on location, your pictures, your text, your consumer behavior, what the algorithm is learning from you. And then the other thing is, and this is what's really stunning to me, the Chinese tried to interfere in our midterm elections. They were putting out videos discouraging people, and they were using the algorithms to do this, discouraging people from voting on a bipartisan basis or nonpartisan basis. And that's why I tell people, if TikTok was a Russian company, there would be an FBI raid of their headquarters. At least they would be calling for it on the left. So I think everyone agrees they're a privacy danger to America, to our national security. We shouldn't have the Communist Party of China having access to a treasure trove of American data that they can use to try to influence and divide us at the same time as they collect valuable information now and for the future.
Well, yeah, we banned RT. I'm hoping that you're going to get at least one Democrat on your side on this, are you?
Yeah, apparently all of them.
I think we will. Look, I think we have a lot of Democrat support for the concern about it. Mark Warner is the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. Him and I sent a letter together asking the Justice Department and the intelligence agencies to speed up this review. But I don't think anything's going to come of it.
Right. That's the other part of this is there's an entire narrative that we're going to see in a minute from the White House. The White House is saying, well, we're investigating this. We're seeing what they did. We've got a lot of inquiries out there, and they're looking at this, and CISA's looking at that, and the CFIUS is over here, and the CFIUS is over there, and eventually we'll know what to do about this. But they're saying, well, this is kind of a real, clear and present danger, and okay, like we understand that you need to investigate, all right, but are you going to do anything at the conclusion of the investigation? Or is this just sort of kicking the can down the road to try to stall out any action? And that's not going to be able to be accomplished by them. We see that Rubio and Hawley and the Senate just passed this thing. So now whether they like it or not, this big spicy meatball lands on the desk of Pelosi while she's still in office.
I don't think at the end of the day that anything's going to come of the security review or that anything they do will take care of this problem. I think we have to begin with a very basic principle. Companies under the control of the Chinese Communist Party should not have access, unfettered access, to the private data of millions and millions of Americans that they can then use against us for espionage, for foreign policy, for division.
All right, so Rubio is taking it one step further. The act that was passed by Hawley is saying, it's just on government devices. Rubio says, let's take it out of the entire country, right? They shouldn't have access to anybody. So just ban the app, right? You just tell App Store, you tell Google, this app is not allowed. It's a national security concern. It's literally, gobbling up information. It's identifying people. It's doing facial recognition scans. It's listening to the devices. It's picking up your contacts. It's, recording you surreptitiously, whatever. Ban it. And I think that's probably a good move. And I don't know why it's taking so long to do something like this, but I actually do know. It's the federal government. So, of course, we're going to see what the Democrats have to say about that. A lot of reactions from the White House. We're going to ask ourselves if the State Department has a plan on this. And since it passed the Senate, is it going to go over to the House of Representatives? And what's the fearless, godlike leader, Nancy Pelosi, who just unveiled herself to America in a portrait, what is she going to do about this? Is she going to sign this into law? A lot of questions. We're going to take a look at all of them right after we check in with our friends over at 4Patriots, because we know it's that time of year and you're looking for last minute gift ideas. You're wondering, what should we do? What should I buy? And let me tell you, nobody wants, that nice Apple product or whatever it is, because those won't feed you when our food supply breaks and crumbles. My friends, a food shortage could be coming. Even in the United States, experts have written about this as recently as July. Drought, inflation, even new policies are pushing America's food supply near its breaking point. That's why survival food is more important now than ever. And you can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4Patriot survival food kits ever. This is not ordinary food. We're talking about good for 25 years super survival food, hand-packed right in family-owned facilities in the United States, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. The kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant, and they stack easily. They have different delicious breakfast, lunches, and dinners, and you can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com. Use code Robert to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including this 3-month survival kit.
Look at that thing.
You'll get their famous guarantee
Amazing.
for an entire year after your order, plus free shipping on orders over $97. They're called 4Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. Go to 4patriots.com. Use code Robert to get 10% off. That's 4patriots.com. Use code Robert. Start building your own stockpile today. Yeah, baby. Go get your 4Patriots survival food. It's very important. Nobody wants to starve to death. Nobody needs that nice designer bag or that, those nice sunglasses or those AirPods. No, you need survival food so that you don't starve to death. All right. And so we have an entire reaction segment here because a lot of people really don't want to address the elephant in the room, which is that TikTok is a disaster. And so we'll have some clips here from the White House because are they going to do anything about this? Well, doesn't seem like it. Karine Jean-Pierre asked questions from the media. The TikTok app seems like it might be a big problem for the youth of America and for American national security, Karine. Is the Biden administration going to do anything about this now that the Senate has passed a ban?
Go ahead, JJ.
I'm wondering if the White House has any reaction on 2 bills that moved through the U.S. Senate. One is on TikTok. The Senate voted to ban TikTok from all government-issued phones. Let's start with that one. Does the White House have feelings on that bill?
So as I've said before, we want to be very careful on commenting on any specific legislation at this time. So we'd refer you to Congress on the next steps. We don't get involved in the process as we've done in the past. But look,
they're always involved in the process. They meddle in everything. And if the process doesn't go their way, they do it anyways. They don't care. So they're always meddling in the process. But in this case, they don't want to comment on it, right? Because this just passed the Senate. Now it's going to work its way over to the House. And I guess it's still true. It is still working its way through. But what's the opinion on this? If this was any other bill, right? If this was some other bill to, eject Donald Trump from outer space, okay, then she'd probably have a lot to say on it. But in this case, because it's Joe Biden's favorite country, they don't want to talk about it.
more broadly, there are a range of tech applications and products that are not allowed to be used on the White House and other federal government work equipment for security reasons, including TikTok. We will not go into any further details about security policies that we have here, but I'm not going to get into the process. I know that this just happened, so we're going to let Congress move forward with their process on
Position on that one. What about the Senate bill that would essentially halt Huawei's access to U.S. banks? The Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer was one of the sponsors of that bill. Does the White House have a position on that one?
No, don't have a position on
that
bill.
One
at this time from here. Okay.
No idea. No position. Don't have really much to say about anything because it's TikTok, and they're just going to let Congress sort itself out. Well, the question is going to be what happens when it lands on their desk, if it does land on their desk, because Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats will get their hands on it soon enough. But first, let's see what the State Department has to say. I mean, if Karine Jean-Pierre doesn't have any guidance for us, does the State Department? Because we know others have said, like the FBI, we just heard, Christopher Wray said, yeah, pretty big issues here. If you want to know more about it, we've got private briefings that we can maybe do for you. If you ask nicely, we'll give it to you. But until then, we've got questions about diplomacy. What about the interface between the State Department and the Chinese? Is there anything that they know, anything that they're doing about this? State Department Ned is here, and he's asked a question about TikTok. The whole world knows it's a gigantic problem. So what is your boss, Anthony Blinken, and Joe Biden doing to solve it?
Question on China and election influence. Forbes reported last week that the Chinese government was using a number of accounts on social media, specifically on TikTok, to distribute inflammatory, divisive content, oftentimes of disinformation ahead of the midterm elections.
Oh, reports of TikTok sharing disinformation and misinformation before the midterm elections. That should be like the end of the world, right? I mean, that should be the catastrophe of the century for the Biden administration. They have weaponized the whole DOJ and the entire FBI to go after misinformation, and they're having a level 9 meltdown. Anthony Fauci is calling it a cesspool because Twitter was purchased by Elon. Misinformation and disinformation is like the word du jour. It's like they can't stop talking about it enough. But here TikTok is doing it, and this fine gentleman is asking him a pertinent question about it.
This comes off as very similar to what Russia did in the 2016 election, and subsequently they were sanctioned for that.
Great point.
For that, otherwise punished. Is there going to be any consequences for China for engaging in what seems to be very similar behavior? And additionally, is the administration considering any action regarding TikTok, specifically perhaps banning it or otherwise restricting it, given security issues we're hearing about regarding that app in the Chinese government?
So the question's a little bit loud. He says, hey, Ned, when Russia so-called interfered with our election, you guys went nuclear. I mean, you're still a little bit pale from that whole saga back in 2016. You guys can't stop talking about it to this day. So now, if this is the same thing happening, except this is TikTok now we're talking about, I mean, you've lost your mind. We're in like basically a global war with Russia right now because of their meddling and interference, and all sorts of other things, certainly. But I mean, they've been, the political scapegoat for the Democrats. Justified or not, whatever you say, they have been since 2016, right? They blame the Russians for Trump, and they have kept that going for a long time. So now, right, if that's all based out of election interference and meddling from the Russians, if the Chinese are doing it, are you also going to melt down? Are we going to see something of a similar proportion?
Two parts of your questions. I need to be careful about both parts because of equities that reside outside of this building.
What?
On your first question,
what does that even mean?
The Office of the Director of National Intelligence.
What does that mean?
Conducts a review in the aftermath of elections, midterm elections, and presidential elections in this country. I'm not prepared to speak to that. I don't believe that their report has been finalized.
Oh,
or
they're
released
still
yet,
investigating.
So I'll refer to the ODNI when it comes to what they saw or what they did not see when it comes to potential foreign influence in the 2022 midterm elections. We did, however, see, and you may have seen as well, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA's, joint bulletin on October 6th of this year. They put out a public service announcement with the FBI that detailed foreign actors' likely use of information manipulation tactics in advance of the midterm elections. And I would refer you to that report for the assessment prior to the elections, and of course to the ODNI for the report in the aftermath of the elections.
So we don't have anything to say.
TikTok, the platform you referenced, I also need to be careful here. Because this is a matter that I would need to refer to my Commerce Department colleagues to weigh in on.
No answers.
But I will say that we are always concerned about foreign actors' potential use of technology.
Wow, that's really impressive. That was excellent. I mean, that was honestly excellent. He said literally nothing there, and he went 2 minutes and 19 seconds. That's pretty dang impressive. Now, I think he's a Harvard guy or something. I don't know if they have like a whole semester on that, like talking without saying anything. I don't know how many credits you need to graduate Harvard or something. I didn't go there, obviously. But this guy did. He went somewhere smart because he talked for 2 minutes and he said nothing. He said any sanctions, can't talk about it. Any threats, can't talk about that. State Department still, we're investigating, they're investigating. And if you're talking about the app, well, talk to the Commerce Department. What? Talk to the Commerce Department. They don't do anything. What are you talking? We're talking to the State Department. This is the diplomatic issue between the United States and China, and he doesn't want to have any accountability at all. So, not unusual. Pretty amazing. They just clam up. Embarrassing. All right, so now we go back over to the House of Representatives. The fearless leader, the woman who is retiring, and all of Congress stopped to admire her portrait, her oil, gigantic, banner of her with lights all over the place and her holding the gavel. These people, just narcissistic maniacs, egomaniac and sociopaths, are basically, enjoying themselves. We'll just leave it there. It's a family show, and it's pretty disgusting. But when she gets asked a real question, watch her shuffle in her podium, very concerned. Pelosi, hello, before you leave, the Senate just did something pretty amazing. They passed unanimously, by the way, a ban on TikTok. Are you going to sign this when it comes across your desk?
A lot of your colleagues expressed concern about the Chinese influence with TikTok, the social media app. The Senate last night passed a bill that would ban
Better have some water on that one. China. China question.
Are you supportive of that effort in particular, but other efforts more broadly to curtail TikTok because of that relationship with the Chinese government?
I haven't seen the legislation.
Oh, you haven't?
My understanding is...
Oh, well, Nancy, it's like a page and a half, okay? We just read it here in less than 2 minutes. It's very short. What it says is no TikTok on government apps. That's it. Do you agree with that? Yes or no?
That there are provisions in the bill that do not deter our ability to, shall we say, from an intelligence standpoint and the rest, still be able to track what we need to track.
Okay, well, that's in there. Okay, she said, well, it's very difficult to understand what she said because I don't know if that's water or, as many of you may have thought yourselves, vodka. Yeah, I see it in there. Yeah, I see it in the chat. Yeah, you get a little extra slurp there on the way out. But here I don't know what she says. Something about we want to make sure the intelligence communities can do what the intelligence communities want to do. And of course, that's in there, right? There's a whole exception. It's actually on the second page of the 4 of them, right? And one of them's blank. So you see that is, it's very easy for her to read that. It doesn't have to be complicated. She's read a lot of bills in her 130 years in Congress.
To, shall we say, from an intelligence standpoint and the rest, still be able to track what we need to track.
Yeah, they can. Don't worry about it. They do whatever they want anyways.
I'll take a look and see, checking with the administration.
What?
Just in terms of language, not in terms of being opposed to the idea, but being specific about the the language. We'll leave here today for what's on the agenda now. I don't know that that will be on the agenda next week, but let's see.
Okay, so she's going to check with the Biden administration, but she's also only going to talk to them about the language of the bill. And the bill is basically done, right? It's already done, passed in the Senate. And yeah, Nancy Pelosi looks very interesting. I also saw this one of Pelosi. Don't know if you guys saw this clip. I was grabbing it while we were here. This came in from @Becker News. Pelosi, she wasn't really answering a lot of questions here. Somebody asked her.
That's what I'm going to do.
Somebody asked Nancy Pelosi about finishing her term. Here's what she said.
Will you commit to serving your full 2-year term for the people of San Francisco?
What is this?
Okay,
What is this?
listen. What a crank. The question is, will you commit to serve your full 2-year term now that you're retiring and now that your portrait's been unveiled?
Will you commit to serving your full 2-year term for the people of San Francisco?
What is this?
What is
What
this?
is this?
Peasant?
Don't bother me with a question like that. Really? Really? Okay? I said what I'm going to do. Yeah. I don't, those kind of questions are such a waste of my time. No, yes, sir.
Oh,
Will you
gosh,
commit
what a
to-
waste of her time. Okay, so somebody's saying that there's no audio on that one for our locals friends because I put it in the wrong browser. So let's pull that. Let's play that one more time for the locals crew. My bad on the browser. You can't cross the browser streams.
Term for the people.
We'll do it one more time. This is Nancy Pelosi very upset with a just loser reporter asking her a question. Can you believe this peasant?
Will you commit to serving your full 2-year term for the people of San
What
Francisco?
is this? What is this? Don't bother me with a question like that. Really? Really?
Really?
Okay? I said what I'm going to do. Yeah. I don't, those kind of questions are such a
Unbelievable.
waste of my time. No, yes, sir.
Waste of my
Will
time.
you commit to serving your full 2-year term
What a waste of time.
for the
Total waste of her time. She's got more important things to do, like unveil her portraits. And all of the peasants out there should be very understanding of her greatness as she wraps up her time in Congress. If she doesn't want to serve the rest of her term, well, then she doesn't have to, dang it. So that's what's going on in our Washington leadership. Not many answers from the White House. We do have some answers from the Senate. All of this is going to land on the desk of the House of Representatives. And of course, we'll see what they want to do about it. But there is a lot more coming. Of course, the states are reacting to some of this. And so we'll jump in there next. As you can see, yeah, there is quite a bit to get to. And so let's do it. All right. Since the federal government doesn't want to take action on virtually any issue, the states have decided they'll do it themselves. We're going to look at Indiana Attorney General. His name is Todd Rokita, filed a pretty interesting lawsuit against TikTok. You can see it's right here. TikTok, ByteDance, both named in a complaint. This is taking place in state court, and it compares and contrasts how the TikTok app is working in the United States and the damage that it's doing to many people who use it versus how the app functions in China. It's very, very nice breakdown, and we'll take a look at the comparisons. So Indiana wants TikTok gone and punished and penalized, in fact, calling it malicious for what it does to people who use it. We'll also turn our attention to South Dakota. Kristi Noem, she has banned TikTok. She issued an executive order. You can see that one came out just a couple short weeks ago, banning TikTok on state devices there. And she's also introducing new legislation to restrict not just the app, but also the purchase of farmland in South Dakota, saying we can't give up our food supply to other people in other countries that don't have American interests at heart. And then lastly, we'll turn our attention over to the great state of Texas and see what they're intending to do with their statewide ban on TikTok. And so we'll start at the top with the announcement from the Attorney General, Todd Rokita, not Rokita, shout out to Nick. You can see he posted this over on the official website for Indiana, coming out of the office of the Indiana Attorney General. He announced last week, 2 separate lawsuits against TikTok, both related to false claims made by the company about its video sharing app of the same name. He says that the TikTok app is a malicious and menacing threat unleashed on unsuspecting Indiana consumers by a Chinese company that knows full well the harms it inflicts on users. With this pair of lawsuits, we hope to force TikTok to stop its false and deceptive misleading practices. He says the first lawsuit, which we're going to take a look at, is that TikTok, he claims that it has lured children onto the platform through a variety of misleading representations, indicating that the app only contains, quote, infrequent and mild sexual content, profanity, and drug references, when in reality, that's not true at all if you've ever used it. The app is rife with extreme examples of those materials. An essential part of TikTok's business model is presenting the application as safe and appropriate for kids, ages 13 to 17. A lot of people dancing on there, a lot of fun stuff going on. The second lawsuit says that China gobbles up highly sensitive data, and in multiple ways, TikTok presents a clear and present danger. The company owes consumers the truth about the age appropriateness of the content. We hope these lawsuits force TikTok to come clean. So he's seeking an emergency injunctive relief, right? This is a suit to protect the kids, along with a bunch of other stuff. And you can see if you go here, there's exhibits and affidavits and cover motions and so on. But what we're going to do is take a look at the actual lawsuit that was filed, because it is actually quite good and it's pretty interesting. Indiana sues TikTok and ByteDance, two companies highly connected with the CCP in China. Filed in Allen County, Indiana, December 7th, 2022. This is in state court, right? So this is in the Superior Court of Allen County. It's not a federal district court. So it's Indiana local. The complaint from the Attorney General, and the Attorneys General across states, they're meant to protect consumers, right? They're meant to make sure that the citizens are essentially protected. And if the federal government won't step in, this is pretty common. The Attorneys General will do so. He complains. Indiana Attorney General says the following. TikTok says its platform is all about spreading joy. But the more TikTok videos consumers view and the more content they create and share, the more TikTok learns about them, their interests, their locations, the type of phones they have, the apps on the phones, who their contacts are, their facial features, their voice prints, and even, quote, where your eyes are looking on your phone, eye tracking. While TikTok vacuums up reams of highly sensitive and personal information about Indiana consumers and you, the rest of America, it also deceives and misleads them about the risks that the app routinely poses to their data. TikTok and its algorithm are owned by ByteDance, a Chinese company subject to Chinese law, including laws that mandate secret cooperation with Chinese intelligence. The Chinese government and CCP, the Communist Party, they've demonstrated interest in the kind of data that TikTok collects, which they can use to spy on, blackmail, coerce those users, or further develop China's artificial intelligence capabilities, or for any number of other purposes that serve China's security and economic interests. And you can imagine that, right? Even if you say, okay, well, who cares if it's a 16-year-old girl and they get all of her application? I mean, I think personally, I'd say like everybody does, right? How do you not care about that? But if there are those people that just say, well, it's going to be whatever. It's on Facebook and Instagram. It's on Google. It's on YouTube. Privacy's dead anyways, right? I think there's a lot of people that just say, what can we do about it, right? Nothing, and they just ignore it. Well, think about what they might gobble up on a person, right? On a young person that they can just hang on to indefinitely, right? Anything, and just hang on to it for the next 10 years, 20 years. Then somebody runs for Senate, right? And they say, remember when you were 16? Remember when you were 18? We have all this weird stuff on you. And we can just use it if we decided to, because there's nobody to stop us. And this carries on. China applies its laws as the CCP sees fit, whenever and wherever it sees fit. There is no meaningful recourse for any individual or any company to refuse its demands. Indiana says that China's data and cybersecurity regimes are not about privacy. They're about control. And thanks to a wave of recent national security, cybersecurity, and data security laws and regulations in China, quote, there will be no secrets, no VPNs, no private or encrypted messages, no anonymous accounts, no trade secrets, no confidential data at all. In China, any and all data will be available and open to the Chinese government. Footnote 3, this comes from the China Law blog, written back October 11, 2020. TikTok tells the state, all the consumers, that their data is protected. They say, we have comprehensive company protocols and practices. We have rigid access controls. I mean, we have US-based security teams here. TikTok says, we've never given Chinese government any access to that data, and we never would, we promise. They say that none of its data is subject to Chinese law and that the Chinese law has nothing to do with us. But TikTok bends over backwards to downplay that its parent company, ByteDance, has a Chinese association. Unlike every other major social media company, TikTok even fails to alert consumers when accounts affiliated with the Chinese government and CCP are pushing controversial and divisive content. Their statements and omissions paint a picture for consumers that there's a minimal risk of the CCP or the Communist Party, right? So they're saying, oh no, China's great. And I can speak to this, in fact. We were posting content on China. We got banned like immediately. We were shadow banned immediately. They didn't share any of our stuff because we talk very critically about China, and all of our shorts were going on there, and we got nuked immediately, right? The censors were like, you're done. And probably for good reason, because I would have put this video right on there, right? What we talked about here, we'll make shorts of this video. I would have put them on TikTok, blasting the CCP, and they don't like that. So if that goes away, they're necessarily influencing the conversation, right? And they're doing it for propaganda, literal propaganda purposes. They control all the data, providing false, deceptive, and misleading statements. The highly sensitive data that TikTok collects from Indiana consumers is also accessible by individuals and entities subject to Chinese law. TikTok and their privacy policy states that it may share the data it collects, and TikTok misleads Indiana consumers in other way. It claims it's independent, but it's not, and nobody is willing to investigate it thus far. They say that TikTok is a wolf in sheep's clothing. As long as TikTok is permitted to deceive and mislead consumers, their privacy is at risk. Now we see jurisdiction is here. The state of Indiana demands a jury trial. They want civil penalties against TikTok for their problematic content. And we know the parties involved are located here. Okay, TikTok, for-profit company. State of Washington is where it's incorporated. TikTok made $4 billion in revenue 2021. ByteDance is another company that's based out of Beijing. They made $58 billion in revenue. A $400 billion company. Major company. All right, so this is where the lawsuit gets a little bit more interesting. What TikTok is. Factual allegations from the state. They say TikTok, social media platform, centers on short videos, created, uploaded, often set to music, downloaded on millions of smartphones. You get it from the app stores. TikTok users register and create a profile, and they automatically collect their IP address, their geolocation data, unique device identifiers, cookies, everything. TikTok, though, also collects some other things about the users, including their user agent, their mobile carrier, time zone settings, identifiers, advertising numbers, keystroke patterns, screen resolution, battery state, audio settings, and connected devices. They also take a user's biometric information, including face prints and voice prints. Oh, that's fun. Tracks them across multiple devices and the internet. When they log in from multiple devices, they'll be able to use their profile and track them everywhere they go. They even tell you they do it in their TOS. If consumers consent, if they say, sure, you can access that, you press that button real fast because you don't care. It also collects their phone's contacts, precise GPS location, information from other social media accounts, and login services if users link them for TikTok. A report from a privacy researcher found that TikTok also collects copious amounts of information. He says that TikTok injects JavaScript into third-party websites that allows them to record every keystroke that you enter. The code thus allows TikTok to capture additional personal information about consumers, including but not limited to passwords and credit card information. So it's just gobbling up everything. TikTok has been caught on more than one occasion evading statutes. In 2019, they were known as Musical.ly. They settled an FTC issue. They also mislead consumers about the risk of the CCP. Falsely denying that it collects user data, TikTok downplays the influence and control over ByteDance. And the privacy policy allows them to transmit the data. They're omitting references and they're just not communicating to consumers. Now, there was more. I'm trying to find this section that I was reading earlier. This may be, hold on, let me see. I want to double check the announcement because there was one section of a lawsuit that I saw. He filed a bunch of stuff. So as you can see, we've got a couple different lawsuits here. And if this is the same one, okay, this is the one that I want to go to. Let's go over here. That's a different one on Chinese data. We're all aware of the Chinese data stuff. This one is also good. This one talks about the youth of America. All right, so all of that was good, but this is better. So they say that TikTok here is a Trojan horse, unleashing on unsuspecting American consumers. This is about the kids. Okay. Tens of millions of minors use TikTok. In order to lure these children onto its platforms, TikTok makes a variety of misleading representations and omissions. They claim that it's a 12 plus rating on the App Store, and they call it T for teen in the Google Play Store and on Microsoft. But once on the platform, many children are exposed to non-stop offerings of inappropriate content that the algorithm force feeds to them. This harms young children and society, calling these effects devastating. TikTok is a for-profit company, operates TikTok, digital application owned by ByteDance. The application is the most used application among young people in the US ages 13 to 17. It outpaces Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. Teens in the United States spend on average 99 minutes per day on TikTok. A lot of time. The TikTok algorithm promotes a variety of inappropriate content to people who are 13 to 17 years of age. The algorithm serves up abundant content of alcohol, tobacco, drugs, sexual content, nudity, suggestive themes, and intense profanity. They promote this content regardless of a user's age, which means it's available to people with ages as young as 13. Now, content that's available and promoted to minors on TikTok does influence their behavior. They're young people. Southwest Allen County Superintendent sent a letter home to parents in September, informing them of increased incidences of vandalism in county schools, attributable specifically to the social media craze of TikTok videos called #DeviousLicks. Those videos, he said, showed students across the country stealing school furnishings and committing acts of vandalism like emptying soap dispensers on the floor, smearing soap on the walls, breaking mirrors, and clogging toilets. He said, obviously, our kids are influenced by social media. And as we talked about at the start of the show, right, it's kind of what everybody wants to be now. All the kids want to be an influencer. And so how do you do that? You do a bunch of outrageous stuff. You get a bunch of clicks. You do a bunch of things for attention, unless you've got, something else to share. But, a lot of kids are, they're kids, so they don't have a lot of stuff to share. So they do stuff like #DeviousLicks. We were all kids once. We all did stupid stuff. It just wasn't hashtagable back then. As a result of TikTok's predatory design, the platform brought in more than $4 billion. Now, at the same time, right, this is where we see the difference between the Chinese app and the American app. At the same time that the youth are being wrecked, TikTok's parent company, ByteDance, operates a parallel application in China called Douyin, which contains many more safeguards for its 13-year-old kids. In China, young users under the age of 14 are required to use the youth mode, and they're subject to name authentication. Those users are limited to 40 minutes of daily use between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. China won't even let you use the app. Douyin also does not contain or promote any kind of salacious content that TikTok does and that they make available to 13-year-olds in the United States. Rather, in China, it serves up educational and light entertainment content. Users under 18 are also barred from viewing live broadcast on the app. In short, TikTok, writes Indiana, poses a known risk to young teens. And TikTok's parent company itself finds it inappropriate for their own users who are of the same age. But TikTok and ByteDance are content to push salacious and inappropriate content to all U.S. users 13 and up for unlimited periods of time, day and night, in an effort to line TikTok's pockets with billions from U.S. consumers. They don't care about the kids. They want them on there as long as possible, right? If you limit them to 40 minutes of daily use, you can't serve them that many ads. If you can get them up to 99 minutes of daily use, which was the average that we saw in the prior lawsuit, and probably way more than that for a lot of people, that's a lot of ads. Make a lot of money that way. Who cares what it does to the kids and the youth and the schools? Nobody cares. Politicians are maybe catching wind. We'll see. An essential part of the business model that TikTok uses is to say that it's safe and appropriate for young users. Yeah, you can put your teen on there. They all want to be on there, 13 and 17, because that group is a key demo for the company and the future growth. In service of that goal, TikTok has misled and deceived Indiana consumers from the inception. They say in particular, TikTok has told Indiana consumers and you, America, that alcohol, drug, tobacco references, that sexual content or nudity, that mature, suggestive themes, crude humor, profanity, infrequent, mild on the platform are infrequent and mild. When in fact, no, that's not true at all. He says they're frequent and intense, so they're directly lying. Each of these representations is misleading and deceptive. Their cumulative effect is also misleading and deceptive, and anyone can visit the TikTok page right now and see them listed as part of the age rating description. Not only have these misrepresentations misled and deceived consumers, but they've also allowed TikTok to self-select a 12-plus age rating in Apple's store. Falsely indicates that it's safe for users 12 and older. In fact, it's not. The only appropriate rating, says Indiana, is 17 plus. TikTok's choice to adopt a lower rating is misleading and deceptive. He's basically saying that none of the things match, right? They're saying that this exists on the platform and it doesn't. If you search for certain things on TikTok, they actually will suggest them for you. Think about this. They're shoving it in your face, whether you want it or not. In fact, sexual content, nudity, and mature suggestive themes are abundant on TikTok. They're not infrequent nor mild. TikTok not only allows users to search for thousands of suggestive hashtags, but it even recommends them to users in its autocomplete feature. That means that users who merely type STRI, like, I don't know, stripes or like strike or anything, what are they going to see? They're going to see in the TikTok search bar, they're going to be offered terms like scripper TikTok. I don't even know what that is. Scripper TikTok. Don't even know what that is. It doesn't even match, right? STRI responds to SKRI, Scripper TikTok, which returns thousands of videos about strippers. So, some of which have been viewed millions of times, pole dancing, and underwear, thong underwear. Oh my gosh. That's out of control. Similarly, typing SPI into the TikTok search bar results in users being offered spicy talk, a search that returns thousands of videos. And KI offers, so you know what these, I don't, all right. So returns thousands of videos about other things that are, if you're into it, okay. Not if you're 13, okay? Not if you're underage. Now, I'm not familiar with all of these things, so, the different terms. Kinty talk? Well, I don't even know what that is. All right. So typing only the letter B into the search bar offers baddies only, a search term that thousands of videos of women twerking. Oh, gosh, the twerkers. And men doing body shots off bikini-clad women. What kind of application is this? I thought this was dancing videos. That's weird. Many of which have millions of views. So if you're a kid and you're typing like, if you type KI because you're like kids shows, you want to type in KI like kids cartoons, and they serve you up whatever this word is. Kin TikTok. Oh, I see what it is. Kin TikTok. Oh, I can't. Oh, it's TikTok. Oh, okay. Kin TikTok. I don't even know what that is. And it brings up all sorts of kinky stuff, man, for the kids, for the youth of America. So so they're shoving it in your face is the point, right? You don't even have to be looking for it. If you're a kid, you type in kids cartoon, you're getting kink stuff. Okay. Now, paragraph 18, Indiana says, in light of this abundant and serious content about mature content, TikTok misleads and deceives Indiana customers by choosing infrequent. And so a bunch of young people get on there, they type in kids cartoons, they get kink hashtags. Great. TikTok knows that if it were to choose that frequent to describe the type of content, it would get a much higher rating, 17 plus, and they definitely don't want that. Profanity is frequent. They say if they were to self-report, they would have been given mature ratings in all of the app stores. And so all of that is deceptive. And therefore, they're entitled to relief, right? Just like if your gym is ripping you off or any other company is ripping you off, right? The attorneys general will go and they'll file claims. So the rest of that, right, you can sort of understand that they're going to assemble that all together. There's a For You feed. It tracks your information. Okay, it knows if you watch a video. It says, well, if you're watching a video about this, you probably like this stuff. And so it sort of matches what you're watching to what it thinks you like. And of course, they give you weird, like they give you a bunch of stuff. And if they serve up a kid, you know, something like a 13-year-old kid, something that's a 17 plus piece of content, and there's no differentiations between them. Not good. Now, what's this? We've got redactions in this? We do. A paragraph is redacted. 55 is redacted. Why are we seeing a redaction here? Interesting. So it says 56 blank upon information and belief, version 24.1 of the TikTok app was made available. So these must be like trade secrets or... Interesting. So in other words, in that software, they would have, you know, in that version, they're explaining it. Because TikTok selected blank in response to that, TikTok App Store offers all app. So interesting. All right. So you see the rest of this right now. There's a lot here. There are other additional filings here. It looks like we've got an affidavit of somebody named M. Wold. Let's take a look at what this looks like. It says, my name is M. Wold. I'm an attorney. I screen recorded a series of videos of a TikTok app being a user profile of a 13-year-old. All right. So this is somebody saying this is what I observed and saw. It's an affidavit. I registered as a 13-year-old user. I screen recorded these videos on a burner phone, no prior web history or other stored information. Exhibits or copies. He says Exhibit 6 is a video showing if I type SHR into the search bar, it offers the autocomplete of shrooms, which returns videos of users tripping on shrooms. I recorded that video with restricted mode on. If I type another one, SHR, offers Shroomies Trip. If I type Exhibit 8 is showing Shroom Talk. If I type ALK, it returns ALK for teens. Right? And so it's just spamming you with a bunch of stuff. So this person recorded a bunch of stuff, and you've got thongs, pole dancing videos. It's just out of control. 1.5 million views for strip talk and TikTok pole dancing. It's just totally bedlam over there. Out of control. So you can see why so many kids are on there, as a matter of fact. It's like, dang, it's a good thing they didn't have this when I was a kid. Exhibit 75 is a video set to the song F Off, 3.5 million views. Yeah. I'm actually kind of interested in the app now, to be honest, after all of this. Maybe I'll have to download it again and get back on it. Sounds like it's a wild time, out of control here. Look at all these words. Family show. This is crazy. All right. So, yeah, for research. It's part of the show now. Gosh, I don't know. You know, we not humping in a video. I don't know what that one is. Here's another one. We not humping. 15.2 million views of we not humping. All right. Not sure what that one's about. I'm not going to go look either. This is one of those things. Curiosity killed the cat. Don't go looking at all. All right. So that's the lawsuit right now. That all, of course, is coming from the state of Indiana, going against ByteDance and TikTok. So all of this is here. If you want to read through the rest of it, affidavits, memos, a lot of stuff. And I think it's good news that people are doing the due diligence on this. What I like about it is that it's very clear, right? It's very articulated. You can see, okay, well, it's not just this amorphous thing like TikTok is bad. They're saying, no, we type searches for KI, we get kink stuff. Like what? Right? They're shoving it in your face, whether you want it or not, whether your kid wants it or not. And there's no differentiators between the age groups, right? And it's very clear. It says it's rated improperly. It should be adjusted in rating. That's the state of Indiana. Why the federal government is not doing anything like this, I have no idea. Well, I do. It's because it's Joe Biden, and he's the person who is in charge at the moment. So we've got that. Indiana, of course, is doing a great job. We're also going to check in with Kristi Noem because she banned TikTok, and she also banned some farms. But before we jump over to another state, of course, we've got Texas coming up as well. I wanted to share with you just a quick video from our law firm, somebody that we helped quite some time ago, actually. And if you know anybody in the state of Arizona who needs some help, of course, our phone number is right here. Our website is right there, and we'd love to be able to help. This is a friend. This is an old client that we had.
Law firm, it's more on a personal level. It's not so much business. And what sets this firm apart is these guys, they actually care about their clients. I mean, I saw that the first time that I actually spoke with both of them. It's that level of comfort that I walked into, and you know, I didn't feel intimidated. I was comfortable. Not only did they take the anxiety away, but they took the intimidation out of it. Anytime you're going through this process, it is very intimidating. And
it is.
They brought the intimidation level down. Sometimes 5, 6 o'clock at night, as the case was progressing, you know, I had questions, and they were there to answer them. Anytime, any question, it didn't matter. My experience was great. I mean, they reassured me all along. They never told me anything that wasn't true. They always kept me up to date on everything. And at the end of my case, I was completely satisfied. I was actually relieved with the results. These guys were great. Ryan and Robert are the reason that I'm here to raise my daughter. That's it. You know, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. I'm very grateful.
All right, my friend. So yes, if you do need help in the state of Arizona, that's what our law firm does. And our phone number is right there, 480-787-0394. We have an amazing team. We'd love to help. All right, so let's get right back to it. Of course, we just wrapped up with the Indiana Attorney General, who is suing TikTok, I think well overdue. But let's turn our attention to another state, South Dakota. Kristi Noem has also taken some serious action on this and has banned TikTok. You can see that she put together an executive order, and it is pretty brief. She dropped this Executive Order 2022-10. Says, while maintaining the cybersecurity of South Dakota is necessary and essential, the social media company and platform called TikTok has 135 million users in the United States. They may gain control over crucial data. They say FBI Director Christopher Wray, who we heard from previously, has warned about the device practices, says the CCP may attain personal information because ByteDance is headquartered in Beijing. They're concerned about the data flow. ByteDance previously refused to stop the data flow from the United States into China. Military, TSA, others, DHS have banned the use of TikTok, and they say that permitting the use of TikTok would be contrary to the interests of the state of South Dakota. So therefore, says Governor Kristi, I, by the authority vested in me, do hereby order and direct that no employee or agency of the state of South Dakota shall download or use the TikTok app or visit the TikTok website. Ooh, that's interesting. Of government-issued devices. So don't even go to the web app. Don't even go to TikTok.com. Okay? Don't even go look at stuff there. Totally banned, including state-issued cell phones, no laptop devices, or any device capable of internet connectivity. Now, no person who contracts also with the state of South Dakota, also including but not limited to any state agency, also shall not be able to allow or use it at all. Wow. So a pretty serious ban from the governor out of South Dakota. And she was on with somebody talking about that. Did I link that somewhere? I think I did. I think I linked Noem, but I didn't put it in the mind map. Let me see if I downloaded this. I did. Here it comes.
The governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, joins us now. Governor, great to have you with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be with you and talk about this today. It's so important that we take action like this as states to protect our people. I did sign an executive order on banning TikTok off of state devices and our servers. It is now inaccessible to our employees, but also it will be a criminal offense if they do access this, because we know how the Chinese Communist government is using this to gain data and information on American citizens.
The warnings have been out there about Chinese big tech for a while. It started with Huawei and ZTE, these other companies, and now we know more about TikTok. And tell us about your latest move here to have the South Dakota Investment Council review any of the state's investments in Chinese-owned companies. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we've also taken action in this area, too, recognizing that our South Dakota Investment Council, which invests funds to help the retirements and pensions of state employees, could be investing in communist companies, also Chinese companies, and that would not be something that would further the interests of protecting the United States of America. So I asked the South Dakota Investment Council to within 7 days, give me an evaluation, give me an assessment of how our funds are being invested, and if they are being invested in funds that support the Chinese government or they're companies that are established in China, that we change our course of action, that we no longer do that. In fact, already our investment council has divested out of 2 Chinese companies, and I do expect to receive that report within a couple of days so that we can take action to ensure that we're not supporting this country that has been our enemy. Listen, we all know that China wants to destroy the United States of America. They hate us, they are our enemy, and we should not be investing in any kind of a company that supports their communist policies.
Obviously true, but she is now joined by others who are of the same mindset. It has taken quite some time. Now, there was another link. Kristi Noem announces a plan to restrict foreign purchases of AG land. And that was another link that the governor shared with us. But we'll see if that legislation actually passes. Okay, so she promised this, or she says proposed it, but it hasn't actually passed yet. But she's essentially saying no CCP farms, and that land is protected. We'll see what they do in South Dakota. But also in the great state of Texas, we've got Governor Abbott. He says that they're also banning TikTok on their government devices.
All employees of the state of Texas and all state agencies. And then also I'm calling for legislation. We have a legislative session beginning next month. And I'm calling for legislation for a more comprehensive approach by the entire state of Texas in addressing the threats posed by TikTok.
So that I don't know what that means. More comprehensive means harder removal or what? But the point is, a lot of states are taking action on it. We saw that there's a big lawsuit from Indiana, and that is all, I think, good news. We'll see what the courts do with it. We'll see what Congress does with it, and we'll certainly follow TikTok and the saga as that continues. Thank you for joining us as we do, for hitting that like button and subscribing wherever it is you're following, and we'll see you on the next one. All right, we've got one final segment left, my friends. Bioweapons. House Intelligence Committee is now saying that that might be what started all of the pandemic. Oh, great. They published this on Twitter, and that minority committee, which is the House Intelligence Committee, is now going to be the majority committee in the next Congress. But they write this in mid-December. They say, tonight, the minority staff, led by Rep. Brad Wenstrup, released their unclassified summary on their report on the origins of the COVID. They write that our report states that COVID-19 may have been tied to China's bioweapons research program and that the intelligence community withheld key information from the American public's authorized elected officials, deepening public mistrust. Sounds pretty bad. Now, this is the minority report. When they become in the majority, we'll see if the report changes. But it is now available. Unclassified. The United States House of Representatives, the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, released the following unclassified second interim on the origins of COVID pandemic report. They give us the executive summary. They tell us in part 1. They say the COVID-19 pandemic wreaked havoc across the country. True. With almost every household feeling its effects. The U.S. death toll from this virus has surpassed 1 million people, and although concrete data is hard to lock down, millions of Americans are suffering from long-term effects directly attributable to the virus. COVID has also negatively impacted communities, especially our schools. It's become increasingly clear that school-aged children face major educational hurdles because of long-term school closures. The public deserves answers on every respect, including how it started, and specifically whether it was natural or the result of a lab-related event. This committee is uniquely positioned to assist in answering the questions. This unclassified report attempts to add to the discourse of COVID-19 origins with the understanding that information held by the intelligence community, the IC, has yet to be shared with this committee. It could be useful in making a final determination of whether this thing started in a lab or was natural. The report says, in direct contrast to the media skepticism that we saw in the early days of the pandemic, the scientific community now largely accepts as feasible, at least, that it may have emerged from a lab. Chinese scientists experimenting with coronaviruses may have caused it. Science and scientists have called for additional investigations, broader review, but since the PRC, the CCP, has not been transparent in sharing information, the intelligence community is uniquely situated to provide what we need. However, Congress says the intelligence community has thus far failed to inform the public and failed to keep its congressional oversight committees fully informed about what it knows. The intelligence community owes the American people greater transparency on the information it already has, and it must be fully transparent to those in Congress. They say that based on our investigation involving a variety of public and non-public info, we conclude that there are indications that SARS-CoV-2 may have been tied to China's biological weapons research program and spilled over to the human population during a lab-related incident at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The intelligence community has failed to adequately address this information. The committee has not seen any indications, though, that the military released the virus. Omissions in the declassified, updated assessment that the IC, the intelligence community, provided were misleading. All right. So not only are they stonewalling Congress and these reports are not making it to them, but when they do get the reports, when the stuff does get transferred, they're also lying, right? They're actually misleading on the issues. One of the intelligence community's 3 primary tasks in its 90-day assessment of the origins was to evaluate connections to bioweapons programs. The declassified report claimed the IC was able to reach broad agreement, quote, that the virus was not developed as a bioweapon. Despite the fact that the IC relayed its confidence for nearly every other assessment in the declassified report, low confidence, moderate confidence, etc., they failed to disclose its confidence about the bioweapons assessment. So they say, oh no, we think this with this level of confidence. I can make that jump. Yeah, I can jump across that. Yeah, I can dunk that ball. I can dunk in there. I can touch that. I can jump up and touch that. How sure are you? 80%, maybe 40%, probably, right? You don't really know. They gave numbers to everything else except this. The intelligence community's declassified version also withheld other key information from the public. The committee believes that this vital information could have been included in a declassified version without harming national security, but everything harms national security. In fact, these omissions likely skewed the public's understanding of key issues. The intelligence community should be transparent regarding what it knows, what it doesn't know, about the relationship between the People Liberation's Army, their 5th Institute of Academy and Military Medical Sciences, which China has publicly admitted conducts bioweapons research, and the Wuhan Institute, particularly during 2019, saying this is the connection. The PLA, the Chinese Army, has a group called AMMS, Academy of Military Medical Sciences, right? It's like military medical science. It's like the military CDC weaponized. I don't know. And they're working with Wuhan. There's a connection between these two organizations. Was it investigated? In addition to the problems with the declassified version that came from the intelligence community, the classified version that we also got provided to Congress also omits vital information, and it dismisses the intelligence in a cursory manner. The intelligence community failed to correct claims in the classified assessments, and they undermined a key portion of the report. They failed to comply with numerous requests for more information. They just didn't give it over to them. This committee will continue to press them and try to get them to explain why it was omitted. Members will seek to declassify the full classified version And regardless, the intelligence community should on its own declassify and release all the public stuff about the Chinese medical science military team and bioweapons. The history of China's bioweapons and proposals and the nature of all of this happened under questionable circumstances. They say that there was timing of experiments by military scientists at the Wuhan Institute in 2019 and the Fifth Institute scientist General Zhao Yusen, who since died under questionable circumstances. Some general in China died. How? The committee also has reason to believe that they downplayed the possibility that it was connected to the bioweapons program. The IC denied congressional oversight over its assessment. It relied heavily on outside experts who all had conflict of interest or may have had. In response to failures, they're not providing any information. They restricted part of the ODNI's. This committee restricted part of their budget. However, despite failing to turn over the list of outside experts, the ODNI unilaterally declared it complied with Congress. The committee strongly disagrees with the ODNI assessment. So in other words, right, the director of national intelligence just says, we gave you what you wanted. And you say, no, you didn't. And they said, yes, we did. We're the intelligence community. We're smarter than you. So, and we'll Epstein you if you disagree with us. And you go, okay, all right. Well, we'll just write it in our letter then. Okay. The intelligence community continues to obstruct, right? The U.S. This is like two branches of the U.S. government, right? And you'd think that they would be in uniformity on this issue. Like what interest do they have in not telling us the truth on this? Unless they're just totally corrupted by the Chinese. I don't know what else to say. The intelligence community continues to obstruct the committee's oversight by engaging in a pattern of refusing to give information. They've ignored dozens of requests and analyses. They say that the committee, we're going to explore all means at its disposal to require the intelligence community to fully cooperate when we're in charge. And we'll use a compulsory process if necessary. So that means formal subpoenas and hearings and whatever. They write that based on our investigation, we conclude that the DHS here in the United States was aware of serious national security risks associated with the military medical science team in China. The Chinese military science team. Nevertheless, public reporting has claimed grant money from HHS components flowed to the Chinese military medical team and their researchers. At the committee's request, the government is conducting a comprehensive accounting, so I think the General Accounting Office or whatever, to determine exactly how much money came from the U.S. government to the Chinese military medical team and the Wuhan Institute. In November of 2022, GAO provided committee staff with an update, confirming that grant money from HHS components, U.S. government, flowed to the Chinese military medical sciences platoon. Well, I don't know what you call it. I don't know what you call it, like a group, a team. I don't know. The Fifth Institute via subawards, so they got a bunch of money. The committee does not know if the scientists who funneled this money to the Fifth Institute, a known component of the Chinese Bioweapons program, were among the experts that consulted with the intelligence community about the origins. What on earth? Oh my gosh, it's like James Baker is working in here. So the Chinese Bioweapons program provided people who were experts that the United States intelligence community consulted with about the origins. What did we just read? The committee does not know if the scientists who funneled this money to the Fifth Institute, a known component of their bioweapons, were among the experts that they consulted on the origins. So they don't know. They're not saying that it happened or not, but it's a hell of an implication. GAO's work is ongoing. Final report scheduled early 2023. All right. Now, the rest of this, of course, is all, a lot of details. And so I'll leave you to read the rest of the report on your own. We'll see down in the conclusion what they're sort of getting to here. They're asking for certain things. We sent letters to everybody. Nobody's responding. Once again, everything's classified. So here's what we want. All reporting, all information. To what extent did you review these and deny our requests? were any SARS intelligence products withheld from distribution, were any drafts and other things not approved for finalization. They want all of the work product, essentially. The members of this committee requested this information by August 19th. To date, no agency has responded with the exception of the CIA and the DIA, saying that the CIA merely sent a list of documents it already produced. The DIA merely resent the documents it already produced. So they're both just like, we already gave you what you needed. Neither provided any of the additional documents requested substantively addressed later. In conclusion, the minority committee says, the IC has failed to respond to numerous legitimate inquiries from its oversight committee about the origins of COVID. The committee will continue to explore these options, and we're going to continue to explore our options regarding the intelligence community's refusal to cooperate, and we'll seek the appropriate action to require compliance. So, man, I hope that they really do that. I mean, this is the big question that we have. I don't know why the intelligence community would be, directly lying to us all, or hiding stuff. They're lying to Congress, right, to try to cover what up. What's the deal? What a joke. All right. So that, my friends, was the update on the bioweapons. The minority report came out. We'll see what it looks like next year when the Republicans are in charge and they've got some mechanisms by which they can go and actually do stuff, right? Issue subpoenas, form their own stupid select committees, and do whatever they want, just like the current select committee did. So that is something we'll continue to cover. Of course, we want to know where this thing came from, and we want everybody who was involved in it to be held to account. Hopefully we get there. But thank you for subscribing, liking this video wherever it is you're watching it, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. But all right, my friends, so that was it on the program. We covered some good ground today. A lot of China, a lot of TikTok, a lot of states suing and throwing China out of their government devices, and a lot of bioweapons talk. It was a lot of China today, but all very important topics. And so now it is time to hear from you and our friends over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And I saw a couple very generous super chats come in. So thank you to everybody who sent those in. Let's pull those up and say thank you to our YouTube friends and see what's cracking over on our Rumble chat. I see some chat over there. We've got Annie, Get Your Guns in the House, Davil 1975, N Nix is over there along with Davil. But all right, so what are we doing here? I need to log in. Apparently I wasn't logged in. Oh, now I'm on the wrong YouTube channel. So this is just not working out that great. But we're going to get over to those super chats here in one quick minute. Don't you just love it when it just logs you out? Happens all the time. But we are making some adjustments on the fly. Seawolf sent in a tip on locals. And it says, I'll pull that up on the screen here in a minute, because it's right over here. Boom, there it is. Seawolf is in the house on our locals and says, Rob, it's time to defund the intelligence communities. In case folks haven't noticed, those agencies are practically accountable to no one. Yeah. If the separation of powers were equated to a cake, the judiciary and the legislature would only get a slice, and the executive branch would take the cake under the color of national security. The most abused color of law you've ever heard of. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, certainly I want America to be a strong, safe nation. What the FBI is doing to promote that, which is, largely, I think, creating their own, in many cases, they're creating their own sagas. That's insane. We definitely don't need all of that. I think basically we could probably take Elon's rule and apply it to all of the government, right? Just cut, 80%. And I think that'd be a good start. A good start. This one came in from Jake at the start of the show. Says, oh, darn, they tried their best. If only they had known to wait till Nancy was gone. They did it this way on purpose. Talking about Pelosi and the passing of the TikTok bill. So I think what you're saying, Jake, is that if Senate passes this and sends it over to the House of Representatives, then the House of Representatives, they won't pass it. And it'll just be dead. And they did that intentionally because they know it's just going to go to someplace to die. And then I guess, I think what would happen in the next Congress is they would just do it again with the Republicans, wouldn't they? I hope it passes. I mean, it should pass. And I think that TikTok really is a problematic app for a whole slew of reasons. But okay, so thank you, Jake. Sketch Therapy is also in the house. He says, TikTok is a keylogger, copies your device. Rogan read the terms of service. Everything, right? And even I think if you open in TikTok, like, you know how somebody will share a link and you'll go in the link, in the TikTok app, it'll take you to a web browser and you can browse around in their web browser. It's like recording everything in there, right? So like if you're on Twitter and you click a link, it takes you to another web browser. You don't leave the Twitter app. Same thing happens on TikTok, except they record everything and send it to China. Box Lane Productions is in the house. He says, we already knew that TikTok was owned because it's terrible for kids. They want to ban it on government devices. And the more worrying about honeypots, they're more worrying about honeypots than kids. That's what I'm saying. It's like all these kids texting each other. What if they're, right? You can DM and stuff on TikTok, can't you? I think you can DM and do all sorts of stuff. And if like all of that is being housed on, a gajillion terabyte hard drive in China somewhere, and then somebody runs for office in 30 years and they say, oh yeah, you're about to win. Remember all this stuff you said? Remember all these videos we've got of you? Remember all that? Man, that could be a problem. Good to see you, Box Lane. Alan Harkins in the house with a very nice one. Thank you there, Alan. Says, great show, informative and enjoyable as per usual. Well, thank you, Alan. I'm glad that you're here. Hopefully, as per usual, enjoying the show. I do have a lot of fun here with you guys, and I learn a bunch of stuff in the chat, and it's a lot of fun. I'm glad that you're here. Let's see what else is happening over on Locals before we wrap it up. Actually, we're going to jump over to the after party on Locals. Let's see what some of the comments are we're going to get over on the Locals. Oh, Sergeant Bob's here. Sweet. Oh, James Cutbirth is here. James, you just joined us, right? Sergeant Bob, Miss Lucky's here. We've got another one from James. A couple comments from James. Anti-Fragile's in the house. All right, so we're going to go over there. I missed a super chat. Oh, we're going to refresh because C. Reed says I missed it. Sorry about that, C. Reed. Let's do a refresh over here. C. Reed's in the house. He says, oh, yeah, talking about the Big Gretch Rona. Big Gretch Rona. 3 guys got convicted for the Big Gretch Rona kidnapping thing, 12 plus years. Yeah, I saw that, right? And that was after the second conviction, right? They convicted him. I think they convicted them on the second trial, right? That's fun. Yeah. So I guess they just keep going in this government. They just keep going. They make up their own sagas, their own stories, and they just try you and try you and try you and try you until they get you. So that's what our FBI is doing. Not too worried about TikTok. Not all that concerned about Chinese influence. They don't even want to comment on it, really. Christopher Wray did, but they're not doing anything. Thank you, C. Reed, for sending that one in. All right, my friends. And so our friends over on Rumble, let's see what's happening over on Rumble. Annie Get Your Gun says, we have a full-blown tyrannical government now without hiding what they're doing. Yeah, I think it's that Alex Scholzschnitchen quote, right? They know they're lying. We know they're lying. They know we know they're lying. They know we know that they know that we know they're lying, and they lie anyways. Dog Digger's here, says here listening with his son. Shout out to your son, Dog Digger. Eric Scorpio says their bioweapon only lived through the first wave. The rest is all, yeah. Who can impeach appointed judges? Who can impeach? I think it's going to, like a Supreme Court judge, that would be the Congress, right? The Congress would vote to impeach. How many people of the corrupt Petes are getting the Bannon treatment? A lot of people are. Yeah, a lot of people are. And so that, my friends, of course, is all in the chat at Rumble. And so we're also on Rumble if you want to join up over there. But today we are done. We're going to hang out for an after party on Locals, get to some additional comments. So come on over and join us if you'd like to do that. Otherwise, I want to say thanks to the sponsors of the program, of course, For Patriots. Definitely a good opportunity to buy an extra Christmas present. Anything in the store, you get 10% off. Just use code Robert over at 4patriots.com. And, you can eat survival food. You can't eat an Apple Watch. So just keep that in mind. And our law firm, of course, the R&R Law Group in Scottsdale, Arizona. We have a lot of cool stuff we're setting up in store next week on Monday. I'm going in for a big portion of the day, my team and I, actually, we're actually going out of the office. We're going to a different office to go do our annual 2023 planning and figure out how we can help more good people charged with crimes fight what is often a corrupted justice system, protect the presumption of innocence, preserve the presumption of defense. We love to help good people. 480-787-0394, rrlawaz.com. And we're doing some cool stuff. We're going to start doing some other R&R Law videos. I've got a whole idea for some stuff I want to work on. So, all right. So that, my friends, is it for us. Thank you to the mods who mod down the fort for us out there. I see Playing Hookies in the house. Lean is definitely in the house. Shout out to Lean and to Playing Hookie. We've also got the other mods who do come by and help out from time to time. Big shout outs to K Bean. I don't know if I saw K Bean here today. I'm scrolling. I'm not sure that we did. But Just Cause, we love you. Playing Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu, our friend Geomancy's on YouTube, by the way. You can subscribe to him. And the other mods, we love them all to death. And thank you for modding down the forts for us. But my friends, we are done here for the day. We'll be back here tomorrow to do it all again. We're going to go over to locals. Locals, hang tight for just a quick minute. We'll wrap up here and we'll see you back in about 30 seconds. My friends, otherwise, have a tremendous evening. Sleep very well. I hope to see you right back here tomorrow so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Have a tremendous evening, my friends. Locals, I'll see you in a minute. Everyone else, I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.